I have beats.
That boy look like Medea. Let go, Medea.
Turnover by Lord. Blocked by Armstead. Two into the end zone. Caught for the touchdown! Caught for the touchdown! Waddle! Miami has taken the lead. That's what the I do.
It's your two favorite degenerates back with another Day One Dolphins podcast, once again hosted by your boy Ouch. Follow me on Twitter at YFinsYY. Here with me is my fellow lifelong Miami Dolphins fan, Chief Sut. Please throw him a follow on Twitter at Chief Sut. Follow our podcast Twitter at Day One Dolphins. Stay up to date. Unfortunately, let's get down to it. What's going on, Sut?
You know, Ouch, I'm actually going to start this off positive. I'm proud of us with this episode happening. That means we made all 17 this year. Shout outs to all of our guests that helped us make it through this and backed me up when I wasn't able to record and were able to jump in on a couple of episodes when you couldn't record. So this is only the second year of the pod. I think even though we don't have like 1 million followers yet, it just shows proof of concept that we're just going to keep getting better and we're going to get after it week after week. We're going to stay consistent, and we're just going to keep moving forward. How are you feeling?
Well, thank you for that piece of that little silver lining.
Yeah.
I mean, I agree, man. Like, this is a perfect example of the type of week that you know what I'm saying? Like, we do this because we like doing it most of the time, you know? We're two people that can't tire each other out talking about football, whereas, you know, and we make it for the kinds of people that are trying to listen to it like that. This is a tough one. This is a perfect example of the type of week where, like, what you texted me beforehand this morning, you're just like, things I don't feel like doing today: watching Hard Knocks, recording a podcast, watching film. Like, yeah, sums it up, bro. Definitely sums it up. And we just do what we're going to say what we were going to do, and we did it. That's what it comes down to. You say you're going to do a whole season of a podcast, do it. I'm not going to be the kind of person who does it and says they're going to do this. It's been difficult for us. You know, we live in different time zones, but, you know, we should be proud of each other, man.
That's all 17.
I don't care that it's only 40 people listening or 100 people listening week to week or whatever. You know, I'm happy that we get to do it still.
If it was 3 people listening, I'm cool. We're doing it because we said we're going to do it. And I think, not looking forward to the offseason or anything like that, but I think this is going to be a pretty big one for the pod. This will be going into year 3. This is when we might start throwing in the video, start throwing in maybe a face reveal, maybe get some merch going.
Yeah, we should.
The people want it, dude.
We'll see. I might jump off.
I was
going to
say, I'm trying to keep you as positive as possible because you were talking about opening the entire show with a full 1 minute just bleep rant. So
I'm scratching my neck over here, like this. I can feel the veins coming out.
We're gonna have
neck.
a Bills review to do after this, and then a playoff preview, and then we'll have another playoff preview after that, and another playoff preview after that. So, you know, we still got episodes to do. I need you to breathe, stretch, shake, let it go, as my boy May says.
Well, despite me not being that angry during the game, I do feel like this game had some of the heaviest implications of negativity and the sky is falling. Usually when I see everyone reacting with the sky is falling, you know, we're fraudulent, I'm immediately just like, you guys are so overreactive. It's one game. And part of me still feels a little bit like that. But if you're able to actually break down the reasons and what actually went wrong, it doesn't really bode well for the future. You know what I mean? The injuries, the matchups that the Ravens were able to employ. You know, we saw a lot of Duke Riley be lost when he had to make a split-second decision. We saw, you know, Xavier Howard leave the game with what he thought was a broken foot or fractured foot, and immediately Eli Apple comes in and looks like he looks like he's been playing video games in the locker room for 5 weeks straight. He looks like we signed him last weekend when he came into that game. He looked so
Just
lost.
distant.
Like, not even a depth piece. Like, so lost. You would have been better starting giving Cater every one of those reps, or giving Cam Smith or any other rookie. What's his name? The little white dude.
Ethan Bonner.
Ethan Bonner. Give somebody a rep that wants to be out there, because Eli Apple looked absolutely lost, man.
Yeah, that was not his finest hour. He had his moments, you know what I mean, for us. But it felt like the second that he was in, Harbaugh or Lamar or whoever did exactly what you or I or McDaniel would say, and let's just pick on this guy. And we watched the film, bro. He bit on like the most basic Dixie Hollins cover three. I bit on the post on a post wheel I've ever seen.
But
it's like textbook.
I don't understand. It's one thing if you're running man coverage and you just get sauced up by the receiver and you bite on something he's doing, but it's another thing when we're looking at the play where Zay Flowers scores on I think it was like the first drive, the first throw or snap of the game, first two or something, he scores on that big one. And it's him and Duke Riley backing up, and you can see on the other side of the field that Jalen's on his guy. Ramsey is hip to hip with his guy. You see Javon sitting in the back, dead center of the field, hasn't made a move yet. You see Duke Riley coming off of Zay Flowers and moving towards the center of the field to come underneath whatever receiver's coming out open underneath Javon. And then you just see Eli Apple like kind of just run with Duke towards the middle of the field and then flip around, and it was obviously lost. And I mean, it was the caliber of the mistake, and then it was the logic. I'm thinking like, okay, well, if you didn't know what you were doing, if everything else fails, you just stick with your guy.
And not even,
you know what I mean?
Bro.
Like,
it's not even like you have a quote unquote guy, because like you said, we're not running man. It was a zone. You just can't let anyone get outside of you when you have a deep third like that. And not only did he let him get outside, but he didn't even realize that somebody was running. He had no clue until the ball was in the air that Zay Flowers was even outside of him. He was so gung-ho on, I want to say it was Bateman, just took him inside, took him right to the safety. And like, as an offensive coordinator, you don't ever think it's going to be that easy of a completion. You usually think, he's at least going to have to make a play on the ball, or he'll get a step or two and get pushed out of bounds or something. But Eli bit that legitimately like a high school kid that got lost in the lights. Like, I saw that on a weekly basis.
It looked a lot to me like what we did to them last year. Like, just you watch defenses break down, and then the offense tries to capitalize on it, and sometimes it works, and sometimes you go, oh my God, that was your shot and you missed or whatever. When we played the Ravens in that second half of the game, every single defensive breakdown that they had to would just strike, and immediately made them pay. And that's what Lamar did. That's what Lamar and the offensive coordinator did. They saw Xavier Howard go out, boom, send it to him, first play, touchdown. They saw, Eli Apple's in coverage over here, abuse them. They saw, oh, hey, they're missing their middle linebacker, Jerome Baker. Let's send our running back on a wheel route and force this linebacker and see if he's good in pass coverage. Nope, he wasn't. And then they run the same play again. Nope, still couldn't get it. I think they did it a third time. Nope, no adjustments made. They just took you to school. I will say that it turned into a shootout, right? If we just take away what the score looked like and we actually break down the way that the game went, it was a shootout. And it was relatively close, in my opinion. Competition-wise, competitiveness was close. There was 10 minutes left in the fourth quarter of the game, and it's 19-32, 38, whatever it was.
Somewhere in that vicinity.
19-35. So, I mean, it not saying it was a beautiful game, but 19-35 when you had two touchdown passes hit your receivers in the hands on two different drives. Right. You know what I'm saying? Let's just say out of those two touchdown drives, let's just say we only get 10 points out of that. Now you're talking about 29-35. You know what I mean? So like it wasn't like fully out of grasp for the majority of the game, despite how bad it was. For as bad as our defense was and how poorly we were executing a lot of the defensive looks and how they were able to score so quickly, we still had a lot of opportunities missed to score quickly. Yep. And it didn't really get out of hand until the end of that fourth quarter. You know, they scored 21 points in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
And, you know, the game was over. And the defense is saying, okay, you know, I said it in the Broncos episode that we did and said the same thing for the Broncos defense. I played devil's advocate. I said, you know, we did beat the hell out of them, but let's be real. You know what I mean? Like, that wasn't the real Broncos defense in the second half in that Miami Sun after they're down 30 points.
They're defeated.
You know?
They're not even really giving it their best effort, as much as people like to say. But our guys were. I would say up until, like you said, the fourth quarter started, we were still hitting chunk plays with multiple guys. Durham hit a couple chunk ones. Seti hit a chunk one. Ingold hit a nice one. Like, we were still pushing the ball, and when we needed to get short yardage, a Jeff Wilson run. I mean, Achane rushed for 100, filling in for Raheem, averaged 7.6 a carry. Like,
to me, he was one of the only bright spots in the entire game.
And honestly, I would say Jeff Wilson. He dang near ran that one in. What was that? Probably about from the 12, 13, 14, somewhere around there. He bounced that one outside, and I thought he was going to score. He broke off like 4 tackles. The Ravens are just such a well-coached and disciplined defense full of guys that want to hit you that, you know, he didn't break enough tackles. But against a lot of teams, that scores. And again, it sucks not having Raheem, you know, the second leading touchdown leader, Pro Bowl running back. Like, that's obviously going to hurt an offense, but to have one guy pop in and rush for 100 yards, the other guy also averaged 7 yards a carry, and we were able to do all that. We almost ran 20, it's about 20 times, give or take.
I would say, ironically, you know, we complain after a loss about our lack of commitment to the run, and he did a good job. I think we committed to the run fairly well, even when we were down multiple
scores. As well as you could in a game that was essentially a shootout. And they had one drive where, you know, quick score, okay, we come down and we respond. And then instead of doing their fast pace or throw another bomb on us, they just ran the ball all the way down the field on that next drive. And not only burned clock, but that almost just like show dominance, like, we can give it to you any which way. And for them to be able to just drive down the field in that manner with just a whole bunch of Gus Edwards and little 3-4 yard little hitters over and over again, I feel like that took a lot of wind out of the Dolphins sideline, at least.
Yeah. And I also, you know, I was talking about how they have a talented group of skill position players that are underrated. And, you know, there were some people that disagree with me, but like, Isaiah Likely is an absolute freak at tight end. He's an athletic specimen. Like, you know what I mean? You get that guy going. He just hasn't – there's been a lot to go around on that offense.
Likely plays behind an all-pro.
Yeah, exactly. And he just started getting worked in the last couple of weeks since Andrews went down. And not only that, you know, we talked about the uptick in passing attempts that this offense has seen since they lost Keaton Mitchell. So, you know, we're seeing them kind of fire on all cylinders here. They're not just a good run team. They're a great run team. They're not just a great run team. They're a great passing team. They're not just a great offense. They have a great defense. They don't just have a great defense. They have one of the most confusing defenses that's being executed at a high level in the entire league. I would say that might be the most challenging defense that a quarterback could face in this season, it looks like to me.
This is what a team that is more than likely going to represent the AFC in the Super Bowl looks like.
You're going to have to catch them in the playoffs.
And you're going to have to really catch them.
Slipping.
You're going to have to catch Lamar on one of his off days, which don't happen often because that man is as chill as they come. You're going to have to really get after those linebackers and everybody else. And this was them playing kind of banged up, at least by their standards. You're just...
I mean, not by our standards, but
I think we have 18 starters hurt right now. But like like you said, Isaiah Likely just being able to step in and get after it and fill in like that, that's what a championship team can do, and that's what they do. They just, next man up mentality. Obviously, we are stretching that cliche as far as it can humanly go, But the Ravens do a very good job of drafting, keeping their roster, I guess, loaded with depth. Maybe depth that you guys might not know off the top of your head, but their backup corners and their backup safeties held their own against us when we expected to take the top off and do all this other stuff, you know? It was respectable.
And it's they got Zay Flowers, who's great. I think Rashad Bateman is amazing, like a slot guy. He wins as soon as he breaks on any slant. For the first 2 steps, he's open every time I've ever seen him run it. You know, you got OBJ as your third.
And he's playing like old OBJ over the last month of the season. I've been seeing a lot more of him. And, he's obviously not as fast and not as explosive and all that, but when you want to talk about a polished route running, clean receiver that's going to catch the ball, make the quarterback's day a little bit easier, that's what he's there for, and that's what he's doing.
He's your third receiver,
and he's coaching up the young bulls that can still move like that, and he's giving them little tidbits and little tricks and little move skis. It's getting real over there. I respect it.
I think it's a sleeper offense. You know, this offense has been crying that Lamar doesn't have any weapons for like 4 years now. And all they've done is tried to give him weapons. So it's bound to happen that he has these weapons they're developing. And, you know, they might just be overlooked a little bit. But like, if you look it down and break it down in a box, like, it is what it is. Like, in a vacuum, I mean, it's just, they're good flat out. You know, you got to come to play against them. We're missing most of our starters on defense at this point. So we'll move back into the injuries. Obviously, you saw Bradley Chubb tore his ACL. So within the last 3 games, we've lost our two best pass rushers, who are amongst some of the best pass rushers in the NFL this year, to torn ligaments for the rest of the season. Also, our center to a torn ACL for the rest of the season. Xavier Howard looks like he's probably going to miss the rest of the season with a broken foot or hurt foot, whatever it is. Tua hurt his shoulder while he already was playing with a hurt thumb on his throwing hand. Tyreek Hill's in a walking boot. Devon Achane's hurt. Jalen Waddle missed the game. Raheem Mostert missed the game. Liam Eichenberg got hurt towards the end of the game. He was playing hurt. We don't really have anybody back up for him at center.
It's Jonathan Haddison. That really jacked guy.
He hasn't played football in 4 years.
Yeah, I'm just saying, we do.
And the last team he played for was the New York Jets, who cut him.
Hey, we do have a guy.
Yeah, we do. That's for sure. But it's whatever, man. This is to me, what I want to say is, this reminds me a lot of the playoff game that we were going into last year, when the last thing that I said on this podcast was, I don't care what happens, we don't have a chance to win this game. And we went in there with an offensive line full of third-string linemen, a third-string quarterback who had been in the NFL for about 6 months and didn't even play at a big school. And we competed and lost by 3 as time expired in the playoffs in Buffalo in the snow. So I'm not going to quite go as hard as I did about doubting, because anything could happen. But with the injuries that we have, man, you know, to move off this painful Ravens game, because it really don't matter. They just took a shellacking. Yeah. You know, what happens now? What are the playoff scenarios now? Do you know? Because I mean, I have a good idea, but are you well versed in the different outcomes we could see here?
Yeah, it's essentially either going to be straight up, if we lose, we just go to KC. That's the easiest one, the most simple. But if we win,
no matter what happens between the Steelers and the Ravens, no matter what happens between the Texans and the
Colts,
are they the Texans, Colts, and then it's Jags, Titans. Okay, yeah. No matter what happens, if we lose this weekend, we go to Arrowhead and play Kansas City on the road.
100% Tyreek Hill goes home. But with a win, it could go left, right, this way, that way. It's either going to be Buffalo, Pittsburgh, or Jacksonville, from what I understand.
Or the Colts.
The Colts was like kind of slimmer, and so was Jacksonville, right?
I think basically it looks like if we win and the Steelers beat the Ravens backups and the Colts lose, I think we play the Steelers. If we win and the Ravens beat the Steelers despite sitting most of their starters, I think we play Buffalo no matter who wins
Right.
out of the Colts game. So we'll end up playing Buffalo again a third time, which I'm not a fan of.
I don't
To be
want
fair, I'm
they're,
just
they're,
not. I
they're
don't want
too healthy.
I don't want the best of three series.
Not against a team that's yeah. We talk enough about them. They're just so much more favored in the NFL world than us. It's just everything about them just gets a little bit more love and appreciation and respect than anything that we do. And right now, with them surging, with them getting hot, with people being able to jack off Josh Allen again, I just don't want to deal with it.
Well, I mean, they had 8 wins, and Tony Romo decided to end a broadcast saying how he thought that the Bills were going to have a host a home game. So, I mean, they will it into existence. The narrative is decided. Like, the Bills could easily be a team that everybody hates, but that's not what the media decided to do with them. They decided to talk about how much they love the Bills and how sorry it is that they've never been good. And then they had such a dominant performance in the playoffs that they should be deemed as one of the better teams, and how, that's just a narrative that's formed, whether you're a Bills fan or not. Well, Miami gets overlooked. They never get any sort of validation whatsoever. So you get their fans reaching out and chirping and being like, hey, screw you. And then the bounce back is that most of the narrative formed around Miami is that they're not real and they suck and this and that. And, it's because of the chirp back they get from the Miami fans. And it's like a chicken and the egg situation, right? But all in all, we're not the media darlings. They don't want to see Miami in there. They don't care to see us in the playoffs. They treat us like we're the Toronto Maple Leafs for anybody that watches hockey, and it's just like the Cowboys, you know what I mean? Like, oh, it doesn't matter that they won 10 years. They do that 10 games. They do that every year. They're going to lose first round in the playoffs. That's what they do. This is when they start
to fall off. This is when they get beat up. That's the only reason why Miami beat them, because this is when Dallas starts to fall. Like, they get their narratives. They write them out. They make them happen. Straight up.
Well, they were right. Whether or not they deserve to be right, whether or not, what they thought was going to happen actually happened, whether or not it was because of injuries, it fell right in the laps of everyone that wanted it to happen. Colin Cowherd gets to take a victory lap. Stephen A. Smith said he's disgusted with Miami. Yeah, me too, brother. Me too.
Do you want to talk about disgusted Stephen A. Smith? You should have been in that group chat the morning after that Titans game. That could not happen. We talked about it before. We talked about it after. We can keep beating the horse dead as hell. I don't care. But, like, dude, you couldn't lose that game. You just couldn't. And then, again, we had a moment of silence for Bradley Chubb and his injury. How much worse is it hearing him say he took his foot off the gas in that game, and now he cannot help us in this next one?
Well, like you said, it's ironic, but next man up, it's ironic that we've spent so much time leaving guys on the IR trying to get them to be healthy, but at the same time, McDaniel has no conscious effort to pull starters out of a game that's over. You know what I mean? Like, you are a pitcher in baseball from the age of 8. They start putting you on a pitch count if you throw the ball, because they're trying to preserve the actual ligament in your elbow for the rest of your life, especially if you're good. They don't do that in football. Some teams pull you if it's out of hand, and they try to preserve just in total health. But I was reading a bunch of articles, that imply that ACLs and MCLs and ligaments are, meant to take a certain amount of a beating over your life. And over time, over the years, they're able to withstand less pounds of pressure, no matter if you are an athlete and you do try to take preventative measures to make sure that they can. It's just, not like within 30 days time or even a year's time, but they're all kind of ticking time bombs as far as how many pounds of pressure you can apply to the ligament. And you just leave him in the game when he shouldn't have been in there, and boom. In a game that was over with less than 10 minutes left, just like Jalen Phillips in a game that was over with less than 10 minutes left.
Literally no need. It's ego, it's pride, maybe it's numbers, maybe I mean, honestly, watching that horrendous episode of Hard Knocks, he just kept saying, "I don't give up. I don't give up," and I can always respect, not throwing in the towel. But there's a point where you're not throwing in the towel. You're making the smart business decision and protecting your guys.
Yep.
And I'm not going to say he doesn't do that, but I'm going to say we can name, you just named 2 instances where he did not do that. So, again, last year we complained about all the pre-snap penalties and a lot of the silly, funny business that we had going on. Oh, and not establishing the run. He said he was going to check out the film and get better, and he did get better on those things. So, I mean, next year we just make sure that we get guys out when it doesn't matter anymore besides Tua? Like, what are we talking about here, bro? You shouldn't have to learn that. You're the head coach.
This is why I was saying he needs help. It seems like he needs another offensive mind or something. Like, he needs something else takes him off his plate, man. Because
like an old head, you're saying?
That ain't it. I don't know what it is, man, but that ain't it. That ain't it. I don't think a lot of people are calling for Vic Fangio, saying he ruined the game, this and that. I don't even think it was him. I think it was just like the execution and what are you supposed to do? You're putting this into the hands of your players and you're watching them not execute. So there's only so much you can do if you're Vic. I did find it interesting, the excerpt where Javon Holland's at dinner and they're talking about, he pretty much sounds like he listened to the podcast, but he starts out and he's like, we had people on, Twitter or X, whatever, saying, Miami defense sucks. We hired Vic Fangio. It's supposed to be so much better. They're trash. And he's like, really, we just didn't have a grasp of what was going on. A couple weeks in, we started picking it up. And then we said, okay, now we have the freedom. Now we understand it. Now we're really starting to gel. Like word for word what I was saying in this episode first, like in the beginning of the season, no? When everyone was calling for him to be fired?
Yeah, 3 weeks, tops. People were ready to get him fired. They were ready to cut him. They were ready to move on and try something else. And that's honestly, bro, that's just how our fan base is. We're used to it at this point. It takes calm heads, cooler heads prevailing, like you when you're a cool head, like me when I have to cool you down, to tell people like, yo, relax. Like these guys just have to gel a little bit. They have to figure it out. It's not like an instruction manual that just has like 3 steps. Like, these are some deep playbooks with a lot of just read and react decisions that you're not really going to get to make in practice. You're only going to get to make them in a game, and then you're going to get the chance to re-break it down when you watch film. So the only way to really get it in is to get it in, and that takes time.
Yeah, and speaking of film, we did just watch some film on the Buffalo Bills here, and we do it multiple times every year. I would say the biggest difference between what we have seen in their offense since the last time we played them, obviously they fired Ken Dorsey and promoted whoever the hell to offensive coordinator. It doesn't look like it looks a lot less Josh Allen Superman ball. It looks more balanced. They utilize James Cook like an actual running back now. They're seeing success doing it. That Dallas Cowboys game when they blew out Dallas before we played Dallas, Josh threw the ball like 7 times.
He completed 7. Passes. He threw like 15. He was under 50%. And
then he didn't complete that many passes versus the Patriots last week either.
Another 50% game with a pick.
So, I don't know if this is a scheme calling for that. It seems like it's a scheme calling for that plus the adjustments and, so forth. But I expect to see a lot of James Cook, and I expect for it to work versus our defense now, because especially if Jerome Baker isn't back in my middle linebacker, you're going to see Duke Riley out there. You're going to see Emmanuel Ogbah and Andrew Van Ginkel try to set the edge versus the run, especially versus Josh Allen, to try and keep that pocket contained.
And
you're going to see them, and you're going to see them struggle versus tackling against the run. Chubb was a monster. Mm-hmm. Bradley Chubb was an absolute monster against the run in traffic, and Jalen Phillips is your sideline guy who's just not letting it get done. We don't have anybody left like that. So it's a very, very bad time for that matchup for me. They do have a couple middle linebacker injuries. So that bodes well for our passing game. They're not going to be able to do what they did. Milano was a huge hit for them to miss him. Is Von Miller playing?
He was a healthy scratch last week.
Well, I mean, he did beat his girlfriend again or something?
No, they're saying it's not even that. I think it's something going on with the actual playbook and the plays, because the games that he was playing, he wasn't making much of an impact. And I believe Stephon Diggs has more tackles than him on the season. Something crazy like that.
Well, I mean, bro's like 37 years old.
Bro's not trying.
You shouldn't have signed him for 6 years.
Yeah, and once you signed him for that money, he
beat his girlfriend.
Yeah, and honestly, like I've heard rumors that he wants to be like a GM, and like with this girl like saying all this stuff that's completely gone like out the window. So I'm almost assuming he's just given up on everything at this point. He was only kind of playing for the Bills to kind of get himself into the front office, and now that ship has sailed, screw it. I don't care. I don't even.
No, I hope he gives up.
Man, they got some other guys that I worry about more than Von Miller in recent memory anyway, because they're Hurricanes. But
he just turns it up like towards the end of the season. He might just coast through it. Not quite like Aaron Donald, but playoffs come around, you'll see a different Vaughn. I don't want to see them in the playoffs.
Nope.
I think our offense will do okay. I think that we're not really worried about that. I really am just worried about the way that our defense can hold up against their offense and what it looks like at this point. I expect them to try and abuse Liam Eichenberg at center. That's kind of how they structured their entire game plan week 2 versus us, or whatever it was, week 3. They were shooting pass rushers on both sides of Liam and overwhelming him, and he just isn't good at any position of the offensive line. So expect to see maybe them try that again and take away, Tua's first read the best they can, like they did the first time, and we'll see how it goes. The beginning of the game, he didn't really have a problem with it, and I wouldn't say it was really a Tua's fault kind of game. He moved the ball plenty. Josh Allen played a perfect game. That was like a surgical game, very similar to what we just saw out of Lamar, and Josh Allen has just played 2 not good games. So what do you think? You think he plays a third not good game, or you think we gets a little Superman bounce back? I think Christian Wilkins brings the absolute best game out of Josh Allen capable.
Every time. But you know what? I don't care. This week I'm on full fuck Buffalo mode. Josh Allen has his 3rd bad game in a row. They lose and they miss the playoffs. Fuck Buffalo.
Well, I'm going to go out and give you a hot take right here, and I'm sure a lot of people are going to be upset, but it almost means more to me to be able to send Buffalo packing this weekend and wave goodbye than a playoff win does. It really does.
With how it's set up as well, it's very justifiable. Because they had their little run. They weren't supposed to beat the Chiefs or the Cowboys, and they did it. Then a hard fought, all that, yeah. Suck my dude. I don't care. And if we beat them with all these starters out, and Fangio and McDaniel just turn it up onto another level, because they're going to have to. They're going to have to come prepared. They're going to have to have areas to attack. They're going to have specific plays. They're going to have to almost schedule the game. And it's really going to have to follow the schedule with how many injuries we have. If they can do that, my God, that would be so satisfying. It might be.
Yeah.
God, that would be so good. I hate them so much.
Like I said, it would mean more to me, I think, than a playoff win. And it also means that you get a playoff. We know we're going to the playoffs anyways, so that plays into it. But it's just a more valuable, God, if you hate them enough, then, you want that too. And I just want to take it away from them. I want the Steelers to win. And then you mean we get to play the Steelers, the Jags, or the Colts? Sign me up, man.
Please and thank you.
So, and at home too. So, I mean, we'll see what happens.
More than likely be home for 2 games in a row.
They flexed it to a night game, which is the most indicative of just us losing the game as possible.
What we were talking about earlier. Why would they keep the Miami game in the sun, even though it's not even going to be that hot? There's like a cold front right now. It's going to actually be a cold night game. That only bodes well for Buffalo. Us talking about how much they love, when they being the NFL, Vegas, whoever, all of these higher ups love Buffalo and hate us. That was just another selling point that we all saw coming. Obviously, they were going to do that if it helps Buffalo in any way. It doesn't help us. It only helps them. And there's literally nothing to argue about that.
They've just been saying, like, especially with, like, the narrative around Miami and the narrative around Tua, like, oh, you fall apart in the bright lights. Oh, when it means the most, you lose, you know. And even though that hasn't really been the truth, they just say it anyway, and they say it anyway, and they say it anyway, so that when it does happen, told you. And it's gotten to the point where it's like, man, I believe it now. You know what I mean? Like, oh, they flex it to a night game. Like, that can't bode well for us. You know what I mean? Like, all eyes on the Dolphins. Everybody's perspective of the Dolphins that isn't a Dolphins fan is built around the only few times they see him on primetime. And what has that been? Absolute ass whooping from the Ravens. An absolute embarrassment versus the Titans. Concussion with a nasty fencing response by Tua. Yeah, was that? Yeah, Christmas. That was another primetime. 2 concussions. Just the primetime games really haven't been like the good games that we saw. When we throw 6 touchdowns on the Ravens and come back in the fourth quarter, it's a 10 a.m. game. You know what I mean? Like, it just, the Eagles was another primetime game where it's 14 penalties to 0 or whatever the hell it was. Like, it just hasn't. If you're not a Dolphins fan, I understand why you think that the Miami Dolphins look like last year's Steelers at 10-0 or something. Like, I get it. So they just, we'll see what happens, man. If you had a score prediction or you had a different prediction going into this game, I don't know if what you would think. We both had Miami winning the Ravens game. We were both wrong about that. You thought we weren't going to be starting our starters in the Bills game. You're wrong about that. I did have Miami winning this Bills game.
We are basically not starting any of our defensive starters.
Well, I guess technically you're right, but that is not what you meant.
No, that's what I meant.
You thought it would be a choice.
No, I know. And I was saying it down to last week and the week before. I don't care. Like, I hate Buffalo. Would I change my score prediction? Well, at this point, no. I would keep it the same and just erase the no starters port, or just put
20
or just put an asterisk next to it. But there is a little part of me, and I don't know if this is my delusional side. This is just my overly positive Dolphin side. I think there's a part of the Dolphins that just hates Buffalo so much and refuses to let this happen, that if Buffalo comes in cocky, which I think they will, and if they come in almost over-feeling themselves and thinking this is just going to be a straight dog fest, I think we handle them. I think we handle them in like a 34-31 like you were talking, because if we think about it, that's what the playoff game last year with Skylar Thompson was. They really thought, oh, this is literally not even anything. No Tua, missing a whole bunch of other guys. This is just let's get in, let's get out type of thing. And they damn near lost. They were a Cedric Wilson broken tackle away on a punt return from really having a tough go of it. So there is a reality. We haven't talked strange in a while, but you can run the time stone and see there is a chance, there is a reality where we catch them 34-31, something like that. But, I'm not going to tell anybody to put any of their hard-earned dollars into gambling on that.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Well, I'm going to refrain from saying what I said last year just because we're in Miami, and I am interested to see. We've gotten to a point where, we've been so high and so low during this season, like usual, but it does feel a little different. I still believe that this Miami team is different, It's just the injuries and how much can you really overcome. I think you're going to have to play a perfect game, and we haven't seen one in a while. We didn't play a perfect game versus Dallas, and we still won. We definitely didn't play a perfect game versus Titans, and we lost. We played a damn near perfect game versus the Jets, but, it's the Jets. The stakes and the expectations are so low that aids you in your comfortability. I don't like the fact that Buffalo gets to come to Miami confident, and they should be confident. The story's already written that Miami's your little brother that you get to pick on, and they really haven't proved it otherwise. So if you're the plane full of Buffalo Bills players on your way down to Miami, your memory serves you the same as that it's serving me right now. You should be confident. Why else wouldn't you be? You should. If I was a Buffalo Bills player that's been on that roster for 4 years, I'd be excited.
I'm not worried about
that. This is how you get.
I'm not even watching film.
Yeah.
I think that's where we catch them, though.
I hope so. And we've seen the Dolphins be a not as talented team and lose against the Titans in 2020. 2020, and then lose against the Bills in 2021 when Josh Allen famously waves goodbye to all of us when that was the only chance into the playoffs, right? But these teams weren't as stacked. These teams were injured as well, and before the injury weren't as good. Well, everything was on the line and you faltered and you remember how it felt. Well, this time everything's on the line at home in Miami. That's the first time it's been like that, right? The weather is going to be like, obviously not a sunny day in Miami, but it's still going to be favoring you in comparison to what pouring rain in Tennessee or pouring snow in Buffalo. So your home crowd advantage, home field advantage, you got the weather on your side, relatively so, and the season's on the line for you. I'm very interested. There's no prediction for me. I'm just very, very interested to see what Miami Dolphins show up, because I'm not really buying into the fraud thing, but you got to help me make a case right now. You know what I mean? You got to help me make the case that you're not, because this is the one where you got to.
Do me a favor. Throw the fraud thing out. Just help me. I mentally, emotionally, physically just can't handle some stupid nonsense. So just help. Help us. Please. Coach McDaniel, Fangio, whoever's got to be. Get it done.
So let's say they win this weekend.
Who is they?
And then you got to play them again, the Dolphins. And then you got to play the Bills again in the playoffs first week. Then
I'm
what?
praying we get some bodies healthy over that time. Even if it's just 2 or 3 guys, if that means, we get one of the linemen back at full strength, or Waddle somehow wants to fight through the high ankle, that'd be sick. Just get me 2 or 3 bodies back.
Yeah. Good God. Well, I don't feel great going into it, but I man, I don't even know how to phrase it, how to articulate how I feel. I don't feel great going into it, but I expect it. I expect them to win this game, because if not, you're an embarrassment. That's pretty much how I feel.
With that.
So we do make the playoffs no matter what, and it is worth mentioning that in all these years that we have watched the Dolphins play, especially the last 2, game on the line situations that I just referenced, the Bills in 2021 and the Titans in 2020, that was win and you're in. Well, we've already been in for weeks. We took care of that so early in the season that alone is a different Miami Dolphins. That alone is a different team. It's a different organization. We're going to the playoffs for 2 times in a row, back to back. You know what I'm saying? If I could just summarize the entire season and go back in time to 2020 right now and just tell, 2020 Zach or Ware or Valdez or, or Sut or anyone in our group chat, hey man, in 2020 and 2022 and 2023, the Dolphins go to the playoffs back to back 100%. You wouldn't care about what any of these 17 games looked like at all, because that's such a jump.
We're in the dance.
I hope everybody at home keeps that in mind. I don't want to be overly optimistic or, the silver lining. Things have been rough, but just remember, if anyone had told you that the Dolphins were going to the playoffs 2 times in a row back to back, you'd partly not believe it, and the other part of you would be so excited to get to that year where that happened that you wouldn't care about anything else. So remember that.
Don't forget it. Brush your teeth, wash your face, take a shower. Don't let this game beat you up too much. We got another one.
Use lemon. When you cook your chicken, wash it with lemon. It's good for it.
There you go.
That's what the Jamaicans do.
I thought you were talking about when you're washing yourself. Wash yourself with some lemon. That might be good too.
You could do that.
Whatever you got to do to get through this weekend, do it. Because don't worry, boys. We got another one after that.
Yep. But until then, we'll refrain from any Finns for the win.
I'm not allowed.
It's a sad note here. We end on a sad note.
No, we end on this. Buffalo.
Buffalo, I'm not playing with them no more. We're coming in. We're going to win. All
To
right?
death.
In Miami, we're going to win. End of story. We'll check back in next week after it's done, right?
Josh Allen.
Follow me on Twitter at YFinsYY. Follow Sut at Chief Sut. Follow the podcast at Day1 Dolphins. Miami by 10. See you later.
Josh Allen. Stephon Diggs. All of them. Sean McDermott. Joe Brady. The Cook brothers. Both of them. I don't care if they get a third brother. Him too.
You have to do so much censoring.
Miami has the Dolphins, the greatest football team. We take the ball from goal to goal like no one's ever seen. We're in the air, we're on the ground, we're always in control. And when you say Miami, you're talking Super Bowl, 'cause we're the Miami Dolphins. Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins #1. Yes, we're the Miami Dolphins. Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins #1. Miami has the Dolphins, the greatest football team. We take the ball from goal to goal like no one's ever seen.